Keep that outside tap dribbling so it doesn't freeze. Hi, it's Paul from Wicked Acorn. Today we're going to go on a little adventure. We're going to pop over to the Bridgewater Canal to see if it's frozen. It usually only freezes over once and only once a year. If you don't go see it right away, it's usually melted by noon. But that is not the case this week. We've been having a real cold spell. I've been doing some cold weather winter advisories this week. This is unusually cold for here. It's been below zero all week, and it's going to continue until Sunday, when hopefully it's going to go up to around 12 degrees. That's Sunday, the 18th of December, and we'll be at the Sail Makers Market. Come by and say hello. So the thing I wanted to talk about today is water and ice safety. And it's an unfortunate, well, it's a tragic coincidence really. Just a few days ago, 3 children died after falling through the ice here in the UK. So we're going to take a look at the Bridgewater Canal to see if there's any ice. Now I have no doubt that there's ice, but how thick is it? And again, I have no doubts it's not going to be thick enough to walk on. But is it thick enough for a kid to want to give it a go? And without seeing it, no, it's not going to be thick enough to walk on. You need weeks and weeks of cold like this to freeze ice to a thickness safe enough to walk on. So we're going to need a few things. I need the staff of ignorance. And should I take my little sharp axe? Every day I wake up, I have a song in my head, and today it was Dirty Old Town. And that's a fitting song for today because we're going to take a walk and maybe dream a dream by the old canal. But I don't think we're going to need this to test the ice. So where are we? We're in Sail in Greater Manchester in the historic county of Cheshire. And at the other end of the Bridgewater Canal is a place called Salford. Now the song Dirty Old Town was written about Salford, and it's been said that the canal he sings of is the Manchester, Bolton and Barry Canal. But the Bridgewater Canal is in Salford too, and it's the older canal. So maybe he was singing about the old canal, the Bridgewater Canal. Okay, we're almost there. We haven't really left the neighborhood yet. There in the background is the 40 Steps Bridge. Well, I don't actually know the name of the bridge. It replaced a bridge called the 60 Steps Bridge, and the old photo I found of it had a title of 40 Steps Bridge. So I keep calling its replacement the 40 Step Bridge. Even though it has way more than 40 steps, it even has more than 60 steps. Leave a comment if you know how many it has. So the 40 Steps Bridge goes over the tram tracks now. It was the Manchester South Junction and Altrincham Railway, the world's first suburban railway. But now it's the Metrolink between Altrincham and Manchester. And on the other side is the Bridgewater Canal. I don't think there's an event in history that you can't connect to the Bridgewater Canal. It opened in 1761, and if you keep heading that way, you'll end up in the Mersey and off to the rest of the world. Every bale of cotton that was picked by the slaves of the southern states of America came along here on its way to the mills of Manchester. Let's see if we needed a big strong axe, a big sharp axe. I don't think we did. Let's try here. Oh. Oh, it's not bad. It's thicker than I thought. But yeah, it's only about a... It's only about a ½ inch thick. Definitely not going to support the weight of anything other than a duck. Can we see the thickness there? It's only about a ½ inch, if that. Oh, maybe a little bit more. Let's see if I can get that piece. Yeah, it's maybe an inch thick. Certainly not thick enough to walk on. You need at least at least 6 inches of ice to walk on. But as I said, that would be tempting to a little kid, and it might even support the weight of a little kid for a few seconds, enough to fall in, get wet, and way too cold. You don't want to go in there. So this is a lovely trail on the opposite bank, I guess, on the opposite side to the tow path. We end up down here quite a bit. It's one of my favorite places to walk. And it's a crisp, sunny day here in dirty old Greater Manchester. Yeah, that would be tempting if I was a little kid, I must admit. But it's not, definitely not thick enough to even attempt. We lose people in Canada every year. People go out on the ice before it's thick enough. You need weeks and weeks and weeks of below zero temperatures to have ice thick enough to walk on. 6 inches. You need 6 inches to walk or skate on. And you need a foot, 12 inches to bring a machine on. So last week I committed one of the ultimate faux pas. I called Salford Manchester. I was at the Makers Market called Quayside. They actually had dancing girls. And I accidentally said I was in Manchester, but I was actually on the other side of the bridge in Salford. So as a little atonement, let me tell you a little bit about a love song written for a place. Not for a woman, but for a place called Salford, the dirty old town. It was written by Jimmy Miller, better known as Ewan MacColl, in the late 40s. He fancied himself a Scotsman, but he was born and raised in Salford. He wrote it to cover an awkward scene change in his 1949 play Landscape with Chimneys, set in a north of England industrial town. The first verse refers to the gasworks croft, a piece of open land adjacent to the gasworks, and then speaks of the old canal, the Manchester, Bolton and Barry Canal. But again, I point out the old canal is the Bridgewater Canal, which opened nearly 50 years before. The line in the original version about smelling a spring on the Salford wind is sometimes sung as the Salford wind, you know, like the chemical sulfur. That's pretty funny. An excellent Mondegree or misheard lyric, almost as good as The Girl with Colitis Goes By. But most singers tend to drop the Salford reference altogether, calling the wind smoky. MacColl gave Rod Stewart, Roger Whittaker, and the Dubliners partial rights to the song in the 1960s. The gasworks wall, the old canal, the docks, they're all in there in the dirty old town of Salford. And that isn't a slight to Salford or its people. Later, the song was passed on to his daughter Kirsty. She would collaborate with the Pogues in 1987 to release one of the greatest Christmas songs of all time, Fairy Tale of New York. Her influence is probably how the Pogues ended up with the song Dirty Old Town. They play the Pogues version as Salford City Football Club walk out on the field. Dirty Old Town is like that other famous folk tune written by Woody Guthrie, This Land is Your Land. Everybody has their own version, and they claim it as their own. Even in Petty Harbour, on the east coast of Canada.
I heard a sigh from the cross of God. God set the night on fire, and I smelled the spring on the smoky wind. Dirty old town.
places all along the canal on this side where the edge is given way. It's something that's eventually going to need attention if it doesn't already. It's one of my favorite places is to walk along the canal. When we first moved here, or were first moving here, one of my friends said, "Dirty old Manchester." Couldn't be farther from the truth, could it? I'm sure it was true one time. But then again, what wasn't dirty old 100 plus years ago? It was all a dirty old town 100 years ago. There's a circular hole in the ice there. What's that all about? Not a hole, but some kind of scar. Roger Whittaker is the version I grew up listening to of Dirty Old Town. And if you want to giggle, look for Roger Whittaker on Top of the Pops. I think he had a big hit with, what was the name of that song? Last Farewell, I think. Did it have to be number one to be on Top of the Pops? Was that a number one song? I guess it was in the charts at any rate. Anyway, it's quite funny to watch the audience. They really don't know what to make of it. They were probably there to see Slade, and they got Roger Whittaker. So if your kid comes home without that bag of apples, he may have been testing the ice thickness with them. Do you think? How did that happen? Oh my gosh. What a fool am I. Look up. What a fool am I. I've never noticed this apple tree before. I wonder what they're like. They're nice looking apples. They're kind of small, but they're nice looking apples. I'm surprised they haven't fallen. All the apples on our trees have fallen. There are a lot of apple trees in Sale. People even talk about there being a lot in Sale. Not just me. I've heard people mention it on Facebook. How old would that tree be? My thought was that they were probably planted after the war. People were more aware of being self-sufficient, still rationing on the go. So they were probably planting apple trees for the future. And of course we can't even manage the apples we have. Just goes to show how things change. We have so much. We don't have to worry about apples so much. That's funny, I've never noticed that apple tree before. I've walked along here many times. I guess they're completely obscured by the leaves, or I just never noticed. Need at least a foot of ice to bring a machine on, like a snowmobile. Of course, most of us call them skidoos, even though they aren't skidoos. Well, skidoo is a snowmobile, but a snowmobile is not necessarily a skidoo. It's like you guys with Hoovers. It's a vacuum cleaner, isn't it? All Hoovers are vacuums, but not all vacuums are Hoovers. At any rate, don't go on the ice unless it's a foot thick on a snowmobile or a skidoo or ATV. Thanks for watching. From cold and sunny Sale, we'll see you in the next one. So if you want to help us out with the things we do here at Wicked Acorn, check out our webpage, wickedacorn.com, and you can find yourself some Christmas cheer.